What's up? I'm Olly Sholotan, and you are tuning into Nothing to Lose But Yourself with Ricky Day. Let's go.
Olly Sholotan. How are you, sir?
Wow, that's crazy. You know what? First of all, no one's gotten that on the first try. Second of all, people don't know that.
See, I thought that I was going to impress you by letting you know that I can pronounce your Nigerian first name properly. I dated a Nigerian, long story. We're not going to go there. But Olly Sholotan, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm lovely. I'm lovely. I'm feeling just blessed and appreciative of life, of the season that I'm in right now. You know, I was literally just having this conversation with someone else the other day. Was it my mom? I think it was my mom, because she's always begging me to do this. But I've just been working a lot recently on just finding moments of peace. You know, because I think like since the show came out, everything's just so all the time, that like my current goal is just find moments of calm and peace. And I'm feeling really, really peaceful right now.
That's good, man. Yeah, and you're gonna find that serves you well as you continue to grow in your career and your life, man. Life is gonna always throw curveballs. Even the good times seem chaotic and crazy. So
that's the thing. Yeah. And that's the weirdest thing to verbalize, right? It's that I'm having a blast. I'm having the time of my life. This is incredible. This is, the only dream I've dreamt of since I was a baby. But it's like there's a chaotic element to it too. There's what is happening? I think those moments are kind of special. But what about you? How's your day going?
My day's amazing, and it's even better now because I'm talking to you. We're doing podcasts. We're doing our thing. We've been clowning before we started rolling, y'all. So if we're silly and we seem familiar, just because we've been having a good time before we even started the episode. But no, man, I'm good. I've been looking forward to this conversation with you. I'm enjoying the work. Congratulations on the show and on your role.
Thank you.
Well done. Before we dive into the show, and particularly in your case, because you're a new face on the scene, I like to give my guests an opportunity to kind of introduce themselves to the world, give us a little bit of background on, who you are, man, where you come from. You're literally the youngest guest I've had on the show so far.
Okay, that's an honor. Okay. If you interview anyone younger now, I'm going to be offended, but
It may very well happen, but I doubt it's going to happen anytime soon. So yes, congratulations. You are our youngest guest officially.
Thank you.
I'm excited, man. So it's a new journey for you, but tell us a little bit about where you came from, how you started and who you are. Who is
Olly Sholotan? Mm-hmm. All right. Well, my name is Olly Sholotan. I'm Nigerian. I was born in Atlanta. We were there for a very short amount of time. I was born in Atlanta, but raised in Nigeria until I was about 10. And then my family relocated to Houston, Texas. So Houston is kind of, where I became a person, for lack of a better word. I went to the Kinder High School for Performing and Visual Arts. Same high school that Beyonce went to, funny enough. Same performing arts high school that she went to. And then at 17, I moved to LA to pursue a bachelor's in musical theater over at UCLA. Graduated in 2019. And here I am now. It's been, a crazy but just incredible journey. I think that's everything about me. I can't think of anything else I'm missing.
You're early in your journey, so that feels pretty full or whatever. You should hear some of the other guys. I've had Dionne Warwick on here, so we're talking 60 years of history.
Yeah, so. Nah, that's the thing. There's not that much, and there's not that much history, but I also think in a way, I want to be careful about what I say, but it's in a way, I think that's what's so exciting. I think there's nothing more exciting than this combination of infinite energy plus infinite potential, and sometimes it's overwhelming for me, right, in a way, because I'm so cognizant of and I've changed, because I think when I was younger, I've never been a patient person with myself. So I remember when I was younger, I was always super I'm getting old. I'm running out of time. I remember I would run downstairs. My poor mother. I would run downstairs crying. And my mom's like, "Is everything okay?" I'm like, "It's just, I just watched this movie and I'm not in it. And I'm running out of time, Mom." She's like, "You're 14. What are you talking?" Because, my mom's a very spiritual, religious woman. So hearing her 14-year-old kid, distraught saying, I'm running out of time. Like, what are you saying? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that as I've grown older, I've realized that it's like, oh God, I'm such a baby. You know, I'm so young. I have just like so much of the world, you know, left, and so much of everything left that, you know, in a way it's now almost inversely overwhelming, because I'm like, oh my God, there's so much I can do and so much I want to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm still parsing through my feelings on that, but generally, I say this phrase a lot. It's like, I don't know, I'm like 4, because you know, basically 4 years old.
I hear you, but I mean, you've got great parents from what it sounds like, and you're doing well already in your career. But if I can give you one piece of advice, it's just to be present in every moment and hold on like an anchor to who you are at your core as a person. And the rest, you know, it's stuff that happens, and it's going to be good. It's going to be bad. It's just, that's life. But
and I mean, look, I also have little siblings. Like, in addition to 2 incredible parents, I also have little siblings, and they will humble you. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't, like, there's no, my little brother, he will humble me. He'll be like, hey, that scene, I don't know. It could have been, I was like, it could have been what? I remember when I told him I got the job, I was like, yo, like, blah, 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 Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He was like, we'll see when it comes out. What do you mean? What do you mean we'll see when it comes out?
I love it. I love it. So you're Nigerian-American, born in Atlanta, but you spent first 10 years of your life in Nigeria, and then you moved to Houston. I'm curious, man. At 20, you're 25 now? 24?
24. I just turned 24.
Just turned 24.
In April on the 5th.
So you spent a good portion of your 24 years in Nigeria. What's the impact of living in those 3 different places, and now 4 being in Los Angeles? How has that kind of shaped you as a person, and what are some of the key differences that you kind of recognize in your upbringing as you move from place to place?
Well, interestingly enough, I don't think that Atlanta did not have as much of an impact on me, just because we were there for such a short amount of time. Funny enough, I say that the culture shock from Houston to LA was bigger than Nigeria to Houston. And part of that, but part of that is because when we moved to Houston, I went to British school. I went to a British international school in Houston, just because in Nigeria we have like a lot of British influence, and also we would live in England in bits and pockets. We just traveled a lot when I was younger, and so, you know, going to Houston and going to that British school was sort of this. It was in a way a continuation of the British school system and British culture that I had ingrained in me as a kid. But I think what's so great about my upbringing is I don't know. I think I've grown to, and in my work too. I'm also a musician. But as you can see in my studio, in my work, I think I've grown to welcome inspiration from everywhere. You know what I mean? I think that, and this is a slight tangent, but a genre of music that I absolutely love, that I think gets a terrible rap, is pop music. And just because I think pop music is so unabashed about how it, you know, borrows from so many different genres. It goes through phases in rap. It goes through phases in EDM. It goes through phases in, you know, Latin American music. And I think that having such a very cool and diverse upbringing has really welcomed me to, you know, listening at all angles. That sounds weird to explain, but, you know, just being open to input from anywhere, right? Yeah.
No, I get it.
I think that's the answer to that. Yeah.
No, I get it. It makes a lot of sense. I know your dad is a businessman, and your mom's a community advocate, among other things, an entrepreneur. But the most important thing for me is they're Nigerian parents. So I can only imagine the pressure you must have been under to succeed and get a great education and figure it all out. What did you find that to be a blessing, a burden, some combination of the two? How's that kind of help shape who you are, man?
God, my parents are so interesting. They're so, because they're such not traditional Nigerian parents, in that they are, you know, they're obviously traditionally Nigerian, but I just remember, you know, to any Nigerian, you know, who's listening to this or that has ever heard me, you know, there was at some point say something along the lines of like, well, you know, obviously, you know, African parents, you could only be a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer. But I remember when I came to my parents, I was like, hey, and for me, it was a whole thing. It was a big thing. I remember I was like, Mom, Dad, I want to be an actor. And they're like, all right. My dad essentially was just like, yeah, just be the best one.
Be the best.
And go forth. Which like, I'm so fortunate to have such like kind and nurturing parents. And part of it is, my mom says when I was a kid, I would jump on restaurant tables and perform and stuff. And she was like, well, at that point, what was she going to do? Like, she kind of knew at that point. It was like, what was she going to do? Be like, no, you have to be a lawyer.
Right.
But, they've been so incredibly supportive the entire way through. And if anything, I think the pressure to succeed has been on me. That has been, self-inflicted, right? I think that a similarity with me and Carlton is that I think that we both hold ourselves to a bit of an unnaturally high standard. And so much, I think of what drew me to him as a character is there are parts of him that remind me of myself at the same age. Like at 16, like I said, I would run downstairs. When I tell you I would run downstairs crying about a movie that I wasn't in, the movie was Inception. Like, it's not as if there was a role for me. It's not, but like, I remember I would get into this thing of, Michael Jackson did it better and younger. Like he was the biggest name of whatever. And again, like, I would run myself ragged, and my mom and both my parents, they'd be the ones to be like, look, we're all on our own journey. We're all like, calm down, relax.
Worst thing you can do is compare yourself to other people, bro.
Precisely.
Worst thing you can do.
And I think that so much of my journey as an artist, as I've, grown up, is learning that, unlearning that pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I always say, one of my biggest inspirations in music today is this songwriter and producer. His name is Max Martin. Not a lot of people know, but he. Are you familiar with Max Martin?
Of course.
Oh my goodness!
I produced some of the biggest hits of the last 15, 20 years.
Never had this conversation with someone who knew Max Martin. Like, at any given moment in time of the Billboard Top 10, he occupies like 3 to 4 of those slots. He
Absolutely.
Is, Hit Me Baby One More Time. I Want It That Way. Can't Stop the Feeling. Blinding, But I looked at him, and when I make so much of my music, I remember there was this short period of time where I got into this thing where I would run myself ragged listening to Max Martin records, being like, why am I not this good? And then I happened to watch this random video on Max Martin through the years, and it dawned on me that when I was born, was when he got his first Billboard #1 hit. I think it was like a year later. It was in 1999 where he got his first. And so when I listened to a Blinding Lights or a whatever, 25 years later, he has had 20 years, 2 decades of refining his craft over and over and over and over.
Exactly.
Putting those hours. And so it's insane for me to then look at myself and be like, well, I started producing music, 3 years ago. Why am I not as good as him? And when I say, like, when I was born was when he got his first, that means that he'd been working on his craft. Obviously he put in the 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 hours before he got his first book. So, I think that my journey has just been, taking off a bit of that pressure, still keeping the drive, still keeping the, insatiable urge and search for greatness, but being easier on myself. So I think my parents have been lovely in not putting too much pressure on me. Although my dad, this is a funny story. I don't know if your parents do the same thing, but remember when the Oscars didn't have a host like a couple of years back?
Yes.
My dad, I remember we low-key got into an argument because he was like, you should ask them, you should audition. I was like, what do you mean audition to be a host? Like, he was like, look, you've hosted things before. I think you're great at it. I just think you should put your name in that hat. You never know if you don't try. I'm like, so if anything, they believe in me too much.
You know what, though? Stranger things have happened. And
facts.
That gumption that your dad got in him and given to you, you never know where that may pay off, man. But I just want to emphasize, the drive is important. Compete against yourself, be the best you possible, put all the work in, but don't compare yourself to other people. It'll drive you nuts. I think that's the main thing.
Compete against yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too is people can weaponize that. When they sense that in you, they can weaponize that, and that can become an Achilles heel for you if you're not careful. So just lean into the gifts God gave you. Use the gifts God gave you to be the best person you can be, the best artist you can be. Serve other people with your talents, your gifts, or whatever, and you'll be good. And you'll be the best person you could possibly be. You know, it's like my pastor. I'm a spiritual person. I'm in theology school in addition to being an artist. And my pastor and I were having this theological discussion a couple of weeks ago, and I was just frustrated about the state of the world. And I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. So he's like, "Bruh, listen to me. Tend to the garden that you were assigned to tend to. You have the gifts to tend to that garden. The gifts will serve you well. Do it with all your passion, all your faithfulness, and the rest, God and the universe will take care of." Look at Jesus. He was told to do this thing in this area for this amount of time, and look at the impact. So just be Olly Sholotan with the gifts you've been given. Use them to the best of your ability. You know what I mean? Show up.
Yeah.
But you don't have to compete against Max Martin or Stevie Wonder or anybody else. There's only one.
Also, wait, you were a theology major? Ooh, tell me everything about that. That's
oh my God. It's intense, but I'm kind of built for it. It's interesting. We can have that conversation in the midst of this, and we can have it later. But it's a journey. I'm an artist. You know, I'm a photographer and a filmmaker. But I got called to use my gifts to kind of make the world a better place. And this podcast is actually an extension of that, because I'm just, I'm convinced that so many of us are living in this identity crisis where we've forgotten who we are at our core as human beings, as creation of God. And when you don't love yourself or embrace yourself, it leaves this void in you. And people try to fill that void with material things, with money, with likes, with follows, with fame, and mostly by diminishing other people to make themselves feel better about who they are. But when you love yourself and you understand who you are as a human being, you can look in other people's eyes, you know what I mean? And you can see their humanity. And it's very difficult for you to treat people poorly when you see them as equals, when you see them as human beings. You have to imagine them to be something less than you, less than human, in order for you to cause harm. And I think having conversations with people like yourself and some of my other guests and people who are leaning into their own gifts, embracing and loving who they are, can give examples to people of how you can make life sweeter for yourself by being who you were made to be and stop trying to be everybody and everything else. That's all it is.
That's so interesting, because that literally goes back to don't compare yourself to other people, because what's for them is for them, and your journey is your journey.
If you're trying to be somebody else, then on some level you're saying you're not grateful for what God made you to be. And then you start envying what they have, and you know where envy leads. It's just a whole pot of negativity that breeds. It doesn't start out negative, but it ends up there if you're not careful. So just got to lean into it, man. And speaking of faith, your mom is you mentioned your mom's a person of deep faith. Does she pass that on to you, and how does that affect you in your journey and how you're moving?
My mom is a person of deep faith, and I grew up going to the church, and I think because everyone's journey with spirituality and with God evolves over time. And I think that what God is for me has changed a lot, because, oh, wow, this is actually, I've never said this out loud, I think I have a lot of just personal issues with sort of the institution of religion, in terms of how I've seen it, negatively affect people that I love, and how I've seen it, in the ways that I've seen power structures abused specifically. Yes. That's something that has always been very uncomfortable with me, but, I can't deny that I do have a connection to a higher power.
Absolutely.
So sort of a journey that I think I am on right now still, and I just haven't figured it out yet, is what that is, what that, I don't know. That's in a way, that's a bit of an unfinished thought. That's a bit of a comma but
it makes sense, because it's an unfinished journey. And I think that's a journey that everybody, needs to go on, regardless of what your particular religion is or your faith is. We talk about it in theology school, right? There's a thing called embedded theology, and that's the theology given to you by other people, given to you by your parents, given to you by the ministers you listen to in church. But as you grow up and you grow into your faith, then it's up to you to read the Bible, to study, to go to school, whatever it is you want to do, but to inform and understand what you believe and move into a space where you have a deliberative theology. It's a theology that's built around the things that you've learned and you've come to grow into on your own.
It's that deliberateness that I think that I think I didn't see enough of in specific institutional spaces. You get what I'm saying? It almost felt like an autopilot sort of almost fear-based thing.
Not
If that
almost.
makes sense.
Absolutely fear-based most of the time.
Yeah.
No doubt about
Again,
it.
I'm trying really, because I want to be respectful. Like, I know everyone is on their journey, but I'm not trying to say here. Like,
Understood.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. And, so many, I remember being a kid, right? And I was always curious, and I love God. And from a little kid to this moment, I love God, or, the idea of God. But, they tell me these things and then do something else. And then I'd start reading for myself, and I'm like, oh, I'm confused. This does not make sense to me. What does that mean? And shut up. It is what it is. And I'm like, do you know? Do you actually know?
Yeah.
Or is that why you're so angry? Because you can't answer my question because you don't know? Like, what is going on? And, young people, this is what I love about, young people, is young people today, still have an urge for the spiritual, still want to believe in and see and experience something beyond themselves. But they're not just taking the same old answers and propaganda that people, have built, patriarchal systems of oppression on. They want to understand God for themselves. And it's difficult, man, when you see people saying that they're, for example, a Christian, but then they're being everything but Christ-like. Like
they're doing everything that serves in almost exact opposition of what Jesus stood for. So it just, yeah.
No, I hear you, but we're gonna move on from that. But it's good to know that you're on that journey, man, and lean into your journey, man. Just do it at your own pace, lean into it, learn and grow, and you'll see it. It'll reveal itself to you. So you've had this acting bug forever. Do you remember the first moment that you thought, I want to do that?
I don't think I can remember specifically the moment. Well, I had a few moments. I think I was obsessed with Power Rangers as a kid. I love Power Rangers, and I think this is only something I've distilled recently, right? But it's like Power Rangers sort of served to me as this example of the importance of being called to something greater than yourself. The idea that you have these group of people that they've been tasked with the most sacred burden of protecting the world or the galaxy or whatever, right? And I think that there's something about that with being an artist that resonates with the honor of being an artist in a way. It's like, I was reading someone that was talking about Phineas, Billie Eilish's brother, and part of why he's one of the best producers of today is because he very much he listens. When he's in the studio, sort of in a way the musical ideas are floating around, and he just listens for them to come to him, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's no greater honor, because that's the thing. I think it's very easy for people to be like, oh my God, Olly, like blah blah blah, but like at the end of the day, as much as it's me, and yes, I've worked really really hard, right? But in a way, it's just and that's why I opened this with just like, I'm feeling blessed and I'm feeling grateful. It's like, I'm fortunate that I was able to listen and, have the thoughts, the ideas, the whatever land on me in that moment. In every scene that anyone sees it, they're like, oh my God, Olly, how did you? My response is like, I ain't gonna lie to you, I don't know. And then, yes, obviously I know, like, yes, I trained for it, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, in that moment, I just stayed open and I listened. And so Power Rangers, weirdly enough, kind of started that obsession, but I did sports all through the round. Sports. And then in 2008, this little movie came out called High School Musical. And I watched that and I was like, this theater thing seems kind of dope though. Like, that's interesting. And so I tried to do both for a little bit. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I love sports. Athleticism will always be near and dear to my heart. But I want to try this theater thing for real. And then I got into a performing arts high school for it. And everything just kind of accelerated from there.
Yeah, that speaks to a certain level of confidence that you have in yourself as a young man, because at least in this country, it's sports and all that hyper-masculine stuff, or there's theater and all that stuff. That's
yes,
people make
right?
that dichotomy in their mind, right? And
but I mean, that is something. for me, just on a separate, like something for me in my artistry is like, I'm really interested in redefining what masculinity is and what specifically Black masculinity is, right? I think that, we sort of get into this, and again, I keep going with honored and grateful. Like, I'm so honored to be on a show that directly interfaces with those ideas. It's like, what does it mean to be a Black man? What does it mean to be quote unquote masculine? How does that, how does that affect how people view you? I think one way that I very much want to do is just fashion. I love clothes. I love, I love different silhouettes. Skinny jeans, baggy jeans, I love how clothing can be such an expression of mood, of idea, of whatever, right? But I think fashion is one of those things that it has been, at least in men, it has been so closely identified with non-straightness. Yeah. I'm just like, that's so random. It's like, just because I'm straight means I cannot enjoy you know what I mean? And again, it goes back to that being called to something greater than yourself. I'm really, really excited to hopefully, by example and by just living in it, helping to redefine the conversation around masculinity and what that means.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's something you certainly can do. And I mean, by being Olly, you're going to redefine a lot of things just by being yourself, because you'd be surprised at how few examples there are of people who are confident and comfortable enough to be who they are, to use their gifts to serve and inspire other people. When you do those things, you start to become something greater than who you are anyway, just by, as a byproduct of just showing up and being your best and doing your best. Tell me a little bit about Kinder High School. You got accepted there. Beyonce went there, as you've already shared, which I knew when I was going to ask you about.
Dang, wow, okay, you did your research. That's crazy.
Do my work, bro. I'm not going to tell you stuff and not do it myself. You know what I mean? Like, I got called to do this. Let me show up and do this right. You know what I mean? But tell me about that experience. I know that was a big deal when you got accepted. How competitive was it to get in?
Oh my God, Kinder so at the time I went to, it was just called HSBVA, High School for the Performing and Visual Arts. Since I've graduated, it's now known as Kinder, High School for Performing and Visual Arts. So I throughout this, I will refer to it as PVA. That's what I'm talking about, PVA. Oh my God, my time at that school was just so integral to teaching me about being an artist. So I got in as a sophomore, which is very not natural. The school, because it's a magnet school, the theater program is very specifically a 4-year program. So you kind of have to get in as a freshman. I had missed the application date for freshman year by like 2 days or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm never gonna.
Did you have a meltdown, Olly?
I mean, yes, like I did. But I was like, you know what? It's fine. I don't care. I'm gonna audition anyway. We'll see what happens. Obviously, next year I auditioned. I got in as a sophomore, which I think I was the only one. Yeah, I was the only off level. That's what they call this. I was the only off level that year. But being in that school taught me so much about so many lessons that helped me in college and helped me now in just management, in time management, and also caring about yourself and because we'd go to school, we'd do school would end at like 3:30, and then I'd have rehearsal until 6 or 6:30, and then I'd have a show or whatever at 7 till 9, because we're doing a play, it's running, blah blah blah, 7 till 9, and then I'd get home. This was in high school as a junior. I'd get home at 9, 10 p.m. because also we were living in Pearland at the time. PVA was like in Houston, so it was like a 30-minute drive home. I'd get home, I'd obviously have to do my homework, I'd go to bed and wake up the next day at 5 again. Like I'd go to bed at 12, wake up the next day at 5.
So Hollywood got nothing for you. You were ready.
That's the thing. Like by the time we got out here and we're doing the show, and it's like, yeah, your call time's 6. I was like, okay. I was like, yeah, I'll probably be at the gym right before that, 4:30, and so it just it instilled in me that work ethic. And also while I was there, I did this thing called Young Arts. I was a Young Arts finalist, which is this sort of national arts competition of over 11,000 applicants, and they pick 20. yeah, I think they picked 20 of us to be finalists. We got flown out to Miami, took master classes from some of the most brilliant artists, and just that was, I think I was a Young Arts finalist my February of my senior year.
2015.
Okay. Dang.
I'm showing off now. I'm showing off now.
Now you're just showing off. Yes, it was 2015. And I think that reaffirmed, okay, like I think I'm good enough at this that I think I can do this as a career. But, to get there, I needed that time at PBA. And, while I was there, I did shows, I took class, I don't know. It's really interesting because I still think of myself as a young artist now, right? And so to look back at that time, I was a toddler of an artist, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But that's weird.
It was a beautiful experience that shaped, I think, the rest of my artistry.
Yeah, that's where it starts, man. And I wanted to ask that question specifically because, so many people listen who, want to be inspired by these conversations, but they also want to hear how they can do the kinds of things that you've done, right? What's the advice you would give to aspiring young performers, or more importantly, I think in some cases, their parents? Like, your kid wants to go to a performing arts high school. Give them that opportunity. What are some of the words of wisdom that you would give to young performers or the parents of young performers who want to pursue this stuff?
So the parents, love on them, just like love on them in times of success, in times of strife, in times of everything, right? I mean, I know because for some people, there are some young people who do get into it, and it is just a phase. It is a hobby. It is whatever. And there are people that are so very serious about it. But I think that both things need to be loved and nurtured the same, as though it were life or death in a way, right? Because even when I talk about these conversations I would have with my mom, like, I'm running out of time. Yes, she was like, "What are you talking about? You have all the time in the world." But she never belittled, my plight. She took it seriously, but reassured me that no, you have the time, and you are talented enough and you are gifted enough that one day you can use the gift that you've been given and show the world. And as someone who's young, I always say that, and this isn't a new thing, it's something that's been said multiple times, so don't attribute this quote to me, but success comes when luck means preparation. Yeah. So, just a lot of it is luck. A lot of it is right place, right time. A lot of it is you met this person here that just happened to blah, 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 blah. But in life, I always look at what can I control, what can't I control. I cannot control what audition comes my way. I can't control, whether someone had a bad day, whether this, that. But what I can control is I can be the most prepared in the room. I can know my lines better than anyone else there. I can have a great attitude. I can, I can work on my craft so much. Literally, it just so happened that once the show ended, and when I think a lot of people essentially were like, "Yo, Olly, like, you should go on vacation." You know what I'm saying? Like, you've worked really, really hard. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, nah. And, I locked myself in my studio. I would wake up at 6, go work out, come back here, be in my studio and just like work all day. Put in my take. Because something I always say to myself, like, I'm like a crazy person sometimes. I'll just be walking around and I'll just whisper like 10,000 hours, 10,000 hours. Because everything, and you have to put in 10,000 hours is the minimum. So, I was just like, I need to put in those 10,000 hours as a producer, as a songwriter, as a singer, as a whatever. And it just so happened that someone, was just like, "Hey, I have this opportunity for you. Is this something that you can do?" And in all honesty, without those couple of weeks of intense grinding, my answer would have been like, "Oh, it's not me. Ain't even gonna lie to you. I appreciate it, but it's not me." But I was able to kind of be like, okay, yeah, I can put my name in this hat, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a testament to work ethic, but it's also a testament to listening to your intuition. When your intuition tells you to do it, then just do it.
Yeah. And again, like, I have no idea where the opportunity is going to go, but even just the fact that I felt prepared enough to be like, yeah, I mean, I think case in point, Jabari Banks on Bel-Air, he plays Will, and this is his first ever thing ever. This is his first on-camera credit ever. Like, what an insane, lucky opportunity to come his way. And guess what? He was prepared. He said, "Yeah, I got this. I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna go." So it really, the only advice I can give young people is you can't control how lucky you'll be. You can't control the opportunities come your way, but find what you can control, which is how prepared and how on it and how, your work ethic, and do that. Do that until the cows come home. Do that once the sun comes up till it comes down. Take care of yourself, but do that. And also it's usually the most boring thing. Right?
Yeah.
It's usually, again, I use music as an example just because right now I'm in a
doing your scales on your guitar every day.
Yeah, exactly. It's the, I see all the time on TikTok, it's like, this one producer trick will change. It's like, honestly, this one trick will not change it. It is whatever the most boring, uninteresting part of your craft is.
Absolutely.
As a painter, it's the studying anatomy to see how lines, it's just the boring stuff that no one bothers to do. Do that thing.
Absolutely. And your life, man, is testament to that because, you went to Kinder High School, you put in the work there, you decided to go to UCLA, put in the work there, and then this opportunity comes to be on this show. Tell me about how you ended up playing this iconic role as the new Carlton Banks.
So I had, oh wow! It's a very interesting story of actually synchronicity. So I just moved into not this apartment that I'm in right now. I moved into this other apartment. It was over in Culver City, it was over in Culver City. I was like, okay, I'm an adult. I'm gonna be my own person now. The pandemic is ending. This is it. This is my chance. It was very stressful. Moving out on my own was very, very stressful because money and blah blah blah. And so I had, again, I'm a tech guy, so I had taken my router. I had ordered the self installation kit, but it just didn't work because the previous tenants had nipped the Ethernet cable or whatever. So I was like, oh, that's so annoying. I had to have someone else come in to do it. And so the Spectrum guy came through. And on this random Thursday, he was running late. It took forever. I was late for work. And, he was just like, I promise you this is relevant to the story. This sounds like a complete nonsense.
I got you.
It's so relevant to the story.
I'm going for the ride. We're going for the ride.
And then he's like, yo, I'm so sorry. Like, you have to go. Like, what do you want me to name your Wi-Fi password? And right before when I was thinking of moving to Culver City, a friend of mine had joked. It was like, oh, wow, you're moving out. You're like the Fresh Prince of Culver City. I'm telling you, I cannot make this up. I tell them, I'm like, okay, I'm so sorry. I have to go. Just name it Fresh Prince of Culver City. Lock up, please. I go to work. I'm not lying to you. I'm at work. I was working at Equinox, the front desk. I'm standing there and I get an email for an audition for Bel-Air.
Wow.
Literally, the same
day.
The same day, I remember it because I had shifts on Thursday afternoons. The same day, and I didn't click until way later. I was like, wait a second. And so I don't live in Culver City anymore. My Wi-Fi is still called Fresh Prince of Culver City.
You don't moved on up. You don't moved on up. Not the Culver City shabby, by the way, y'all. It's Culver City.
Culver City is pretty great. So that happened, and I did the work. I did the audition, blah blah blah, sent it off. Nothing, because that's how most auditions work, right? You audition, and that's another thing to any young person wanting to do this. You'll hear no a million times. It's not about the no; it's about that one yes, because that one yes can change your life, right? You send I have a stack in the other room of it's like this big of scripts that I've gotten of just sides. They're all 3 to 5 pages long, and those are all auditions that I've been said no to. You send in an audition, nothing happens. 3 weeks go by, and my agent calls, and he's like, hey, so, you have a callback for Bel-Air. And again, I'm not even that excited about it because auditions, auditions, whatever, you throw them into the void. Callbacks, yes, those are exciting, but again, it's like, you got callbacks.
Right.
And so did another tape, did the callback. A week goes by, my agent calls me, he's like, hey, so the studio wants to test you. They like you and they want to test you. And then everything got insane. I was like, what do you mean they like me and want to test you? And here's the crazy thing about, I don't know if anyone knows this, but when a studio wants to test you, it's the most diabolical thing. They're like, okay, so we're going to put in a testing offer for you. You sign the contract, you negotiate the deal, You sign the contract. You know how many seasons you're there for. You know how much you'll make, blah, 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 blah. And then when they test you, that means that, they may be testing only you. They may test for other people. They take you to the executives and, they either say yes or no. But what's insane about it is just like, again, you negotiate everything. So you get to sit there for the next few days just dreaming of how your life can change.
Yeah.
And so in that time, they had us do chemistry reads. They had us, I was all on Zoom. I'm doing chemistry reads with Jabari, with Simone, with everyone. And, eventually I found out that I got the role. And honestly,
you get the role. Who's the first person you called?
My mom. That's not even a question.
Good answer.
In fact, I remember my agent had called me. He was like, yo, blah, 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 congrats, you got it. And I was just silent for like a minute. And I was like, Tim, I'm not going to lie to you. There's nothing that you will say right now that I'm going to internalize. Can you just give me a second? I have to call my mom. You know what I'm saying? I was like,
yeah.
Like, great, thank you. And obviously there were lots of tears, lots of praying, lots of crying on her end. But so this another, going back to what you said about, it's sort of you versus you. I remember during that whole testing process, I think this was before my first chemistry read. I was on the phone with my agent and randomly I was like, Tim, okay, who else are they testing for the role? Like, how many people are they testing? Is it blah, blah, blah? And he stops me and goes, Olly, none of them matter but you. Go in there and be as talented as I know that you are. And whatever happens, happens. And it was just this little moment of me realizing, oh my God, I almost got in my own way. And again, another thing to young performer, you like 90% of the time, it's going to be you getting in your own way. And you have to give yourself permission to get out of your own way.
Absolutely.
And I almost got in my own way. And okay, who else is here? Okay, you know what? They might be looking for someone who's more this. So maybe I should change myself to be less me. And it's like, no. I'm the only one, like, it's me. It's me. I just need to go in there and do my work and do my art and hope that they like it, right? I called my mom. And, my dad was next to her. Like, so I called both of them, but like, no, mom's has been through it. Because she also, she came with me to the premiere. She called me the next day crying. For the next week and a half, she literally would cry tears of joy on the phone. Because do we have time for this story?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so...
We do. I mean, we have to edit. We'll edit, but we got it. Let's go.
Okay, so what happened was, at the premiere for the show...
Oh, God. Any story that starts with what happened was...
What happened was... So at the premiere for the show... Oh, my God, I was going to hate that time the story. So at the premiere for the show, there are a finite number of people allowed on the carpet. It's very, very... Because also this was during COVID, but also, just with any carpet. So I was the only one allowed to walk. So we got there, my publicist, is in front of me, is leading me. I have my mom, I'm holding my mom's hand and we're walking through. And now we're at this point where Peacock Pair is like, okay, Olly, we need to walk through the carpet. You need to talk to people, blah, blah, blah. And I get on the carpet and I look back and I'm like, wait, hang on. Wait, Mom, come here real quick. Like, I grab my mom and I like pull her onto the carpet. I'm just like, hey, I just wanted to, like make sure I grabbed a picture with my mom. And so like to all the photographers, like I put my arm around my mom and I was like, hey, it's my mom. She's incredible, blah, 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 blah. And, they took the pictures like, okay, Mom, love you. Like, and so, put her back on the carpet and I went on to the rest of it. The next day she's on the phone and her version of that story is one of the funniest things. But I couldn't laugh because when I say she was sobbing tears of joy. She told the story. Her version of the story was that, we got there and your team like took you and they wanted to take you away. But as they were leading you away, you knew that you couldn't do it without your mom. So you turned around and you looked at me, you said, no, I want my mom with me here. And you pulled me and that, Olamide, is the greatest honor of my life. And she saw, I wasn't going like correct her, but I just think it's so funny that her version of that story is
It's hilarious, but it's also that's a metaphor for life, man. We all experience stuff the way we experience it. And you got to understand that. It's very difficult. You can be sitting in a room with somebody and they're experiencing the thing differently than you are. That's a blessing for her. She'll never forget that, man. That is amazing. But yeah, you got it, man. And you body the role. I mean, I am not ashamed to say that I hated Carlton for the first 3 or 4 episodes of that series. But then, you guys started to turn it around, and then the writing it turned, and it's like, oh, you start to see Carlton's humanity and see yourself in it. You do a wonderful job. And you actually, honestly, the whole cast, I was telling Rashid, your showrunner, who I did a conversation with already, that, your casting director deserves an Emmy. Like, she found an amazing cast of people.
Phenomenal woman. I don't understand. And again, especially when y'all realize this whole thing was cast over, did not meet each other in person until after we got the job. Vicky Thomas is spectacular. She just does.
Yeah. She's amazing. And I'm one of those people, I'm not going to lie. When I heard about it, I was like, do we need this show? Are they going to mess up my beloved sitcom from my young years? But you guys have really done a wonderful job, and, much respect to you and to all the cast. But, Carlton, you breathe so much life into him. I am so curious, and you touched on it a little bit already, but how much of Olly is in Carlton and how much of Carlton is in Olly?
I'd say the good parts. The good parts of Carlton are all Olly. All those charming, adorable, fun, super. Oh my God, he's so likable. All those parts are Olly. Nah, it's I do get asked that quite a bit, and I can't give a number, right? Because, like I said, acting is one of those things that is so nebulous that it's so I can't give you the breakdown. But what I will say is, first of all, I'm way friendlier than Carlton off the bat. I'm a lot nicer.
I can attest to that. I mean, I feel like I've known you for years, and we just the first time talking.
But I think that as an actor, it's to bring life into these characters, you have to bring as much of your experiences, maybe not as much of, and some people say as much as yourself, but as much of your experiences as possible. And I know what it feels like to be the only Black kid, at a predominantly white institution, struggling with the choice whether to assimilate or to differentiate yourself. That is something that I can recollect experiencing with. So it's those feelings that I think that, and also, feelings of, wanting to rise to Black excellence, and what does that mean, and putting pressure on yourself to, so I always say that Carlton, in a way, is a different version of myself at 16, because that is definitely a path that I could have gone through. And I hope, we'll see as the seasons get written, I hope that he gets to grow into where I am now. Yeah. But, so yeah, I'm sorry. That feels like a lackluster answer, but how much of me is it? I don't know. I couldn't.
There's no such thing as lackluster. It's just your truth. But I mean, I suspect there's, I suspect there's some trade-off. I mean, there's technique and there's all the things you learned in acting, but also it's putting yourself into it in many ways. And I mean, you play rugby, for God's sake. So there's a little Carlton in you.
How did you, what? I mean, I don't play rugby as much anymore, but that's crazy. Yeah, I play rugby what?
Yeah, rugby, lacrosse, I mean, there's a little Carlton in there.
You know where I live, don't you? I promise you know where I live.
But, and you touched on something when you're talking about, how Black to be, how to differentiate yourself or fit in or whatever. I'm curious about something. And it may not be that profound for you because you were so young when you were in Nigeria, but I've got, friends I know from Nigeria and Caribbean and other places, and they've said something to me that was incredibly profound for me being an African American, but it really makes sense. They're like, Ricky, I didn't know I was Black until I came to the United States. In Africa, I'm just me. Do you remember the moment you realized that you were Black, that there's this thing that's perceived as other?
I don't remember the moment, but I do remember that high school because like I said, high school for me was this journey of realizing that I'm Black. High school was this journey of realizing, of sort of learning, in a way, learning about my lack of privilege. Which is, but yeah, because in Nigeria, like, I'm just me. We're all Black. We're all, yes, there are different tribes, and I got that. But as far as skin color went, it never. High school for me was learning that. Wow, yeah, and I remember when I started driving. Actually, maybe that was the moment. It was when I started driving, and I remember, you have that conversation with your parents of like, if you're ever stopped by the police, just don't.
Oh my God. So Nigerian kids, they have the conversation too. Okay.
Yeah. It's like Trayvon Martin happened when I was, I think, around his age.
Oh
and we were almost the same build, the same weight. Like, and so I think those were the moments that sort of taught me about my otherness in this country, right?
Perceived or imagined otherness, because you're not other. None of us are.
Sure. My perceived or good clarification.
No, that's the great lie. And the other thing is the white supremacist delusion, I refer to it as, because you're not supreme. You're just not. I'm not buying into that. But no.
And so it's very interesting because, and then even through my time at UCLA, learning sort of on a more macro level, right? How racism isn't really an individual issue, in that it's more a systemic issue, in that it's less, oh, this person doesn't like me because I'm Black. It's like that. I couldn't care less about that. It's on an institutional level, the fact that I am, I'm less likely to get approved for a mortgage. The fact that if my house is being appraised, it is generally will be appraised for lower. It's the fact that on an institutional level, Black women receive worse care because of this perceived notion that, as antiquated as it is, that, oh, they feel pain less, or, even just the masculinization of Black women so that they're not seen as dainty. And it's stuff like that I think that is sort of, because and I can't quite put it into words, but there's a difference between Black versus white, and it's not really that. It is on an institutional, like, the way the
societal
country
level
functions level. We as Black people are at a disadvantage. Perceived disadvantage. Actually, no, not perceived disadvantage.
No, it's the disadvantage. Now that part is real.
No, that part is real.
The structures reinforce that and make that very, very real. And, unfortunately, we also live unfortunately, depends on how you look at it. We live in a country that is highly skilled at marketing and advertising and storytelling. And so the story's been told and been sold around the world so successfully that anti-Blackness has infected just about every part of the globe, including Black places. So, you can be Black and be anti-Black. And so it's a very sad state of affairs. But I was curious about, when you realized that you were Black. The other question I'm curious about, I've been asking people this question on our social media feed as well. Is there something you remember at some point in your young life, something that wounded you and perhaps wounded you deeply, right? And if you did have a wound of that sort, how did that wound, or does that wound, inhibit some way your access to joy, and how have you healed from it? Now, you seem to have a wonderful life so far, great parents, and you've done some great work, and you've got a great break here and that you earned in this role. But have you gone through some stuff that may have wounded you, and what was that wound? I'm curious, and then curious about its effects on you.
Well, again, I suppose it's interesting because it's only when you ask the question of like, oh, how much of yourself is in Carlton, that I really think about it. I was like, I guess more than I care to realize. But I remember, so if you remember, I had said I missed the cutoff to apply for PVA by a year. So I got in as a sophomore. So that means I went to a separate high school my freshman year, which that year was pretty rough. I ain't gonna lie to you. But I remember when I was there was this very specific delineation, and like, I'm not Black, I'm African. I was like, yeah, I'm Black, I'm a Black American, but there was this very specific sort of negation of my blackness. Of like, nah, you ain't black, like you know, African booty scratcher or whatever. And that sort of caused this very interesting fissure in my own self-identity as a black person. And I just couldn't figure out where I fit, because I recognized that, again, on an institutional level, I'm still seen as black. On an institutional level, I'm still just like, no police officer is, are you African? Oh, okay. My apologies for stopping you. You're good to go. You know, but I also recognized that, but also, you know, I was 13, so everything was super heightened. But, you know, I was like, well, but other black people don't accept me as me, and I'm seen as different. So that wound definitely, you know, it took a lot of self-acceptance and a lot of, it took a lot of self-love to kind of heal that wound.
Well, how did that wound kind of affect, you know, because joy is, you know, understanding and embracing who you are, being who you are, and put you in a state of joy, right? You know, happiness comes from things outside yourself. You get a new car, you're happy. You get a job, you're happy. You get a gig on a show, you're happy. But it's temporary, because if you lose it, then you're not as happy. But joy just kind of comes from being who you are, existing as who you are. How did that not being accepted as quote unquote fully black, how did that kind of inhibit your access, your personal access to joy? Did it cause you to be depressed? Did it make you wander in the proverbial wilderness for a while? Well, how did it inhibit your access to joy?
Well, you know, it messes with a kid, right? To say, hey, this thing that you identify as, it ain't you. We don't accept you. You are on an island on your own. Because I think I was also the only African kid at that school, which is wild to me, because there's a huge Nigerian population.
I was going to say this.
I don't know. It was like a small school, but you know, that definitely just, I don't know. This is so interesting, because this is something I don't think I've what's the word, thought about this in a very long time.
It's tough, but, you know, the reason I ask it, and the reason I'm, you know, focused on this particular season, the theme of the show this season is hope, healing, and love, right? Because, you know, the past 2 years, the pandemic, the racial awakening, reckoning, whatever you want to call it, which is wildly incomplete still, has deeply wounded in a collective way, all of us. But in addition to that, we all have our own personal wounds, personal traumas and stuff that we live through. And to cope, most of us, of course, will sweep it aside. We'll drink, we'll smoke, we'll have sex, we'll do whatever. We'll put it away, and then we move on and we feel like we're okay. You just put it away in a closet somewhere. You didn't heal from it, and it's going to keep coming back.
Therapy is the biggest. Therapy. There is something on my mind at this moment that I'm not ready to talk about yet. That is a deep wound that I've experienced it, but like, yeah, I mean, I totally, there's this impetus to sweep it aside, and especially as men, you know, and especially as black men, the way society hyper masculinates, is that a word? I've decided it's a word now.
Masculinizes, I don't know.
We'll make it up. That's a word. Yeah, the way like society hyper masculinizes us, to the point where it's like, no, I'm straight. I'm good. Whatever. Like, I don't care. You know, and brushing things to the side. But I found that I just kept hitting this wall, in that I felt like I was going through life in sort of an autopilot crisis mode. And just any little thing just felt like danger. And it's so unlike me, because, you know, you're speaking to me now, and it's like, that's so unlike me. You know, when I would meet new people, there would be sort of this, you know, who are you? And therapy was just the most magical, incredible thing. And it's hard, right? Therapy is hard work, because you have to come to terms with all your demons, and you have to really go in there and be like, why am I the way that I am? You know, in what ways did this person that I love dearly hurt me? In what ways did this other person that I love, that has nothing to do with the thing I'm here for, affect the way I blah, 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 blah. But all of those things kind of, all of those things are, and the thing I've learned from therapy is like the mind kind of does a terrible job of sorting through issues. So all those things just end up being intertwined.
Yeah.
And end up being, and so something I've learned is just asking for help. And so what therapy was for me was learning the ability to go, I just can't carry this on my own. I just can't. And that's okay. Because like I am but one person.
Exactly.
And having a professional help me parse through the contents of my brain was just, lovely.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, bro. And it's courageous and it's honest. And I'll share the same. I just started therapy because I'm like, I probably should unpack some things. I feel fine on the outside and everybody thinks I got it all together. But there's some things I think I could benefit from an objective opinion on somebody to help me kind of walk through the roadmap of some of this stuff. And I just think it's important for us as human beings to acknowledge that, and particularly as Black men, for us to have this conversation in a public forum so other Black men, whether they're my age or your age and younger, just understanding like you're a full human being. You have a full range of emotions. You get hurt like everyone else. You get wounded. You've dealt with traumatic things. You're probably more likely to have dealt with them. And it's important to know that you're not alone. You don't have to deal with this stuff alone. You can seek help. You can seek counseling, therapy, you talk to your pastor about things, but everything can't be prayed away. Some things you need professional help with.
Yeah.
Just to be there for each other and to be there for yourself. I think you would want it for yourself. God wants it for you. Parents want it for you. Like just reach out.
And not to like plug the show again, because I know I've plugged it so many times. I think what I love so much about one of the things we explore on the show is just emotional vulnerability between Black men. And Will and Carlton's relationship, Will and Uncle Phil, even to a certain extent, Carlton and Uncle Phil, just they're so emotionally vulnerable with each other, and they're so willing to like, yo, let me lean on you. End of episode 6, when Carlton has that breakdown and Will is just holding him, and he's just like, yo, I got you, bro. I think it's so important, on a macro level to the culture.
Yeah, it's really important. And you're talking about how prepared I was. That's a perfect example, man, of you stepping right in. That was my next question to you, is to talk about that, because you guys they've really done a wonderful job writing these characters as full people and showing you as emotionally vulnerable. And it felt amazing to see it. I don't think people realize how groundbreaking that actually was. Two young brothers on TV.
I have never seen it. I have never seen it on TV.
Yeah.
Never.
Literally never.
I'm like 4 years old, so maybe there's some that I don't know about, but I never have.
And I'm a couple of years older than you, and I've never seen it. So, no, I
don't. 7, so.
I wish. No, but it's really powerful. And again, you can write a thing, and that's part of the journey, but then you guys have to breathe life into it. And as actors, you have to make the choices that bring that to life. And you guys both did a really wonderful job in that scene. And I'm really grateful for that scene in particular, in the show in general. You're a musician, though. Before we go, I got to talk about your music. And yes, I've listened to the music over the last couple of days as well. And you're actually good. I was a little concerned. I'm like, Lord, I'm a musician. I hope this is good, because I'm high and I don't know.
Nothing's worse than when a homie plays a track for you, you're like, oh no.
It's the worst. But no, it's actually it's dope, man.
Thank you.
Where did the music come from? Has that been in you as long as the acting? And where are you trying to go with it?
So I grew up obsessed with Michael Jackson. Still am, but like I would, every day we'd come home from church, I'd run to my parents' room and we had every Michael Jackson CD, period. Every music video, I've seen it. And I just spend the whole day, like I'd run to my parents' room because that was the only place where the DVD player was. And I just put it in and I'd play it. And I had to get there before them, because if they went up there and started sleeping before I got there, then I was interrupting them. But if I was already there, then I called dibs on their bedroom. So I've always loved music. I grew up listening to Motown, even, Afro beats. Like music has always been, like I said, I would jump on tables and perform and sing. It was always so ingrained in me, but for some reason it was never a thing that I thought about pursuing professionally for whatever reason. I was, it was kind of always, because I had then gone into musical theater as sort of this like, all right, that would be the intersection of my music and my acting, but musical theater is just its own thing and it's not music, right? It's not really the music industry. And then senior year of college. No, yeah, junior, senior year of college. I was kind of like, all right, you know what? I do really I like music too much to not want to do this. And I was like, all right, how do I do this? Well, I don't like waiting for people to give me permission to create my art. So I was like, all right, so I need to learn how to songwrite. Boom. I started songwriting, and I was like, well, I need to record it. So I taught myself audio engineering. But I was like, okay, I'm not going to wait for someone to produce it for me. So I taught myself music production,
Wow.
and then mixing and then mastering. And that's the thing, you just kind of have to, you end up like teaching yourself everything a little bit.
Kindred spirits, bro. I did the same thing. I literally played multiple instruments, produced everything. Most of my people I know now don't know that because I'm focused on this and other things, but yeah.
But okay, no, see, exactly. It's like, I just hated the idea of waiting for a producer to come along who happened to, well, so I was like, in life, I always say I've never been fully prepared for anything that changed my life. Like anything, in terms of like, I've never felt fully prepared, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, I've never been like, oh, I have this 100%. And so I was like, let me jump and hope I fly. And so, I found that you learn so much from just trying and doing and doing and doing. And so, I'm really, really proud of how far my music has come. I released my first EP in 2019, Soulful Gazing. And even, it's funny because I listen back to those songs and I'm so proud of them. And I'm like, yo, I did some stuff on that. But also, when I listen to the stuff I'm working on now, I'm blown away of just like, wow, I'm playing with more interesting ideas, more interesting melodies. The production is more intricate. So I always say like I'm still a student of the work. Like I said, I've locked myself in this room for the last however many weeks and just been grinding. So
well, good for you. You've got a label so you can put your music out yourself. You're doing your thing.
Yeah.
But be open to collaboration. That can work in your favor as well. And I know some great people I could introduce you to who are amazing. Brian Alexander Morgan, who worked with SWV in their first couple of albums. This guy B Slade is a beast. You should, and you listen, your music's good. You're high profile now. You're going to have doors open where you can continue to grow what you're doing.
And that is the coolest part about, the show is it has put me in this new, level where it's like, I've been working on some really cool and interesting collaborations that I'm just like, how on earth is that happening to me? But
because you're prepared.
I'm excited for the world to see what I've been working on.
You and Coco going to do anything together?
I cannot say
She's
yes
dope
or no.
Too. Okay, all right.
I can't say yes or no, but Coco is a fantastic artist, and I will say she's one of the most efficient recording artists that I have seen.
You heard that, ladies and gentlemen. Efficient. That means he knows, which means he's been in the room, which means probably.
I don't know.
And Coco, by the way, we're not talking about Coco from SWV. We're talking about his big sister, Hillary, on the show. Who's a really talented artist as well. Man, I really appreciate you coming and talking to me and sitting with me. This has been a lot of fun. Enjoying the conversation with you. But this other guy, Dr. Sean Ginwright, who's going to be on the show soon. He's a sociologist. He wrote this amazing book called The Four Pivots. And one of the things he talks about is how oppression and these supremacist structures and stuff can kind of rob people from their ability to dream. Like you're so focused on surviving the stuff that you're going through day to day that you just kind of can't dream anymore. And he wrote this question that he would ask students at his camps and stuff from time to time. And he'd ask them this question. I'm going to ask you because I'm curious about your answer as our last point before we go. If you could have a magic napkin, and on that magic napkin, you can write 3 dreams, 3 wishes that would come true 10 years from now, what would they be?
I want to EGOT before I'm 30.
EGOT before 30. We got that one. That's one. That's Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony.
Yeah. On the EGOT before I'm 30. Listen, shoot for the moon.
Why not? I love it. You have no problem dreaming. Go ahead.
Ooh, okay. On You Got From 30, I think I don't want these to be vague because my next thing was going to be like, I want to impact the world but like not want something specific.
You overthinking it. You got dreams.
Am I overthinking it?
You got dreams.
I think I'm totally
Go ahead,
overthinking it.
share them.
Yeah, when You Got From 30, I want to, I want to make just a justifiable impact on the world, right? I want to be a cause for good, and I want to. And my third dream is I want to. Oh wait, You Got From 30. I want to have a fashion line at some point, whether it's clothes and shoes. And also I want to champion financial literacy and mental health in young Black communities.
Please make all those dreams come true, especially the last one, bro.
Yes, sir.
Olly Sholotan. See, I had to end the way I started, by pronouncing your Nigerian first name properly. Now, Olly, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great. I know people are going to be entertained and blessed by the conversation. We wish you and everybody over at Bel-Air much success, continued success, and we hope you're on for multiple seasons and keep doing that dynamic storytelling, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Have a wonderful day.
Where can people follow you, by the way, before I let you?
Oh, you can follow me on Twitter at Olly Show. You can follow me on Instagram at Olly Show. On Twitter at African Godling. I'm a complete menace on there. I'm a menace on Twitter. You're welcome at African Godling, and on TikTok at Olly Show.
Great. And so he'll give us those links, and we'll put them in the show notes. And so when the episodes post, they'll be right there for us. Well, thank you again for joining us today, Olly. Have a great one, man.
You too. Bye.